Hi guys, I'm Vicky from GameByte and I'm also joined by Brett from GameByte. And today we're talking about the E3 demo of Cyberpunk 2077 that we saw. And what the heck are you doing?
I'm doing the Cyberpunk.
That's the robot.
That's they're robots as like cyberpunk things.
No, cyberpunks have like robotic things. Just never mind. Let's just forget this ever happened.
So obviously you got to see the gameplay demo at E3.
Yes, I did.
Which is more than I got to see. I got to see Keanu Reeves, to be fair. So that.
Yeah, to be fair, you got the better end of the stick here. And he pointed directly at you when he said
He pointed in my general direction. It's more than.
That's not how you said it in the group chat.
So obviously the gameplay yet again was hands off, but what did you think of what you saw? Talk us through what happened in the demo.
I'm quite excited because the demo that we saw here at E3 was very different to the stuff that we've seen previously, because obviously Cyberpunk uploaded that 50-minute long gameplay trailer to their YouTube channel. So this one was in an entirely different district. This district in question was called Pacifica. So obviously when you think of Cyberpunk, you think bright neon lights, people everywhere, bustling streets kind of thing. Pacifica is the complete opposite of that. Pacifica is basically all the corps were building a resort park for rich people to get away. Hotels, shopping malls, that kind of thing. And then the financial crisis happened, funding was pulled, and it was just kind of left in ruins. So there's zero traces of anything like neon or even remotely cyberpunky here.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Obviously people have the technology still and they have their enhancements and things like that, but it's a lot less common here. It's more just a dilapidated, rundown area that loads of gangs and stuff roam around in. Obviously you're playing V, however you want V to be. And the goal of the demo that we saw was to track down this group called the Voodoo Boys, specifically their leader. And to do that, it was kind of you know a guy. And you were doing a mission for someone who promised to set you up a meeting with the leader of the Voodoo Boys if you did what they asked. And what they asked was basically going and clearing out this gang called the Animals, I think. That had set up in one of the big shopping mall of the district. You got to see a bit of Johnny Silverhand, because obviously he's haunting V as a digital ghost. And
so do you actually see a physical manifestation of Keanu Reeves, or was it just his voice?
No, you do. So obviously in the Cyberpunk worlds, everyone has enhancements built into their bodies, I suppose, and a very common one is in your eyes. It's used so that companies can send advertisements and you can't do anything about it. And, yeah, legitimately, this is a very common theme in Cyberpunk. But it also does cool things auto-translating people who are speaking different languages and things.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I really loved about it. So many different languages were spoken by all the residents of Night City. But it was just very seamless because people would be talking one language to one person and responding in another, but everyone can understand each other because it's auto-translated for them. But because obviously you've got this tech in your eyes, that allows you to see things that aren't there. And in this case, it's not advertisements, it's the digital ghost of Johnny Silverhand. So,
to be fair, I'd much rather have Keanu Reeves in my eyes than Coca-Cola adverts most of the time.
That's the thing, you want to sell me soda, sell it via Keanu Reeves. Easy. But you can kind of tell he's not really supposed to be there because it's very glitchy. He kind of glitched in and out, and one minute he'd be there and then he'd be right up in your face. It was really cool. So the impression I got is that he's kind of working with you, I suppose. Kind of helping you do your things, but I'm assuming that's in return for helping him with something.
Yeah.
So, because I'm assuming they're keeping to the lore that's already happened in the tabletop games, and kind of Johnny Silverhand died in circumstances that everyone assumed he was dead.
Spoilers.
Well, it's a very little campaign that you can do. Everyone knows this, it's fine. But yeah, basically, it was presumed that he was incinerated, but no body was ever found, so everyone was a bit where's Johnny? But this kind of implies that he's dead.
Yeah.
But his consciousness, which is uploaded somewhere, which given like the magnitude of his influence in this world, that's not that unplausible.
Because is it basically like he's a big rock star? Is that what Johnny Silverhand basically is?
He's a rocker boy, which in effect is like a big rock star. Like, because obviously it's cyberpunk, like rock stars and things do have quite a lot of influence in this world, provided you're like a big one. He was a central character that kind of came up in the tabletop campaigns, because the way that they worked was that you could have, like, you had the base book that told you all the rules and things, but then you had like little adventures that you could run as a GM if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And this just happened to be one. I think it was called like Never Fade Away, which is one of his songs too.
Okay,
so
that's cool. I suppose, like, obviously you've talked about a bit of the lore and stuff, but in terms of like graphically, is it looking good? Because obviously everything that's been shown so far has been very much neon lights, cyberpunk and blah, 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 whereas what you're saying with this area is it's very much run down and it hasn't had that cyberpunk treatment. So did this still look graphically interesting?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I guess it was less in like, because obviously in the very cyberpunky areas, you're blown away by everything, and that's kind of the point, that's what it's supposed to be. Here, everything's a lot more subtle, which I like. Like, there's a lot of world building storytelling going on in the stuff that's built around you, like signs saying like, welcome to Pacifica, but it's all run down, or like, there's very plain looking buildings that are run down, but like the graffiti might say something, or it's the people who are in these spots that are there telling the story. So it goes from the landscape being what's overbearing to the people, because it's absolutely overrun with people, like markets and things. So.
And obviously I imagine not every person that you saw was a person you had to kill, but I imagine there were people that, and they, you know, they've come out and said you can complete the game without killing anyone if you really wanted to, which is, it's good to know. I like the RPGs and games that you don't have to kill.
Based on what I saw, that's definitely possible, but that's gonna be so damn hard, like, honestly.
And I imagine kind of dull considering the kind of toys they're going to give you to use.
Yes and no. It depends how much they allow you to rein these tools in, I suppose, because like we saw examples of like hacking. The ones that I remember are, there was a guy who was kind of like bench pressing, and because everything's connected to the cloud in the future, the V hacked the bench press and the whole of the weight just crushed him.
Yeah.
And there was another one where there was like a fighting training robot that got hacked and it literally punched the guy's head off. If you can control that, so you can choose for the robot to do a non-lethal blow, or you can hack the bench press in a way that it kind of like chips someone rather than flat out lands on their head, then it could be very, very fun. But the only non-lethal ways I saw of killing people in the demo that I saw was kind of like sneak up behind someone, grapple them by the neck, and then just choose not to snap their neck. So if you've got to do every kind of kill like that to not kill people, I can't imagine anybody doing that on their first run unless you're really setting out to do it. So.
And it sounds like a lot of the cyberpunk kills are obviously cool, but they also sound very much like Watch Dogs as well, to a degree. Like Watch Dogs is all about hacking machines to do X, Y, Z. Yes
and no. I'd argue that based on what I've seen from both games and what I've played of like the older Watch Dogs games, there's more freedom in Cyberpunk. Watch Dogs was very straightforward in its narrative and how you were supposed to do things. This is you got a bit more to play with, I'd say. There's definitely multiple ways you can do it, and I suppose that's true of Watch Dogs as well, but like, obviously the new Watch Dogs kind of has a bit of a cyberpunk vibe, obviously not as much. And I'm more excited personally about Cyberpunk just because there seems to be more to it. Obviously Watch Dogs is much earlier days, the new one anyway, than Cyberpunk currently is, and maybe that will change over time as we reveal more. But I feel like, because it ultimately depends on how they execute a lot of these things. Like, we only saw brief bits of the classes, even though the classes are like a skill tree and you can go anywhere you want. But I know from having played the tabletop, like if you're a net runner, you have these things called cyber decks, which are like these The best way I can describe it is, you know, like those Beyblade platforms that have like the cars on and you're like, ha, ha, ha. It's like that, but varying in size. And you get different ones and more expensive models and things. And you buy programs for those cyber decks that allow you to do things in the net space.
Okay.
And I know that programs are definitely a thing because they mentioned something called daemons, which are basically malicious programs. They do malicious things. They hack people's firewalls and things. So because they mentioned that, it implies that that's going to be how hacking works, which is going to make it so much more in depth than Watch Dogs has ever been.
That'd be interesting. And, you know, I know they're working hard with the creator of the game, whose name unfortunately forgets me right now. I apologise for that. But you know, it's good, like they did with The Witcher as well. They worked with the writer when creating all of that sort of world to exist. So it's nice to sort of see them yet again working closely with an IP to make sure that they stay true to the IP.
Yeah, it definitely shows. Like, I've played a lot of different Cyberpunk. That should be the genre.
That should be
Cyberpunk tabletop games, nerd. But and Cyberpunk 2020 is not the one I've played the most. I've played enough of it to be able to appreciate all these little things that I keep see cropping up. Like, all right, that's really cool how they've integrated this and this and this. But it's not my most played. But from what I know and what I've seen, I'm quite excited as to how they're building on something really well.
Are there any other examples that you can think of that they're tying into the board game right now?
Oh gosh, put me on the spot. Yeah, I guess the big thing is how you build your character. They've definitely, like, you can really see the tabletop influence in that. It's limited compared to Cyberpunk, because like when you create a character in the original tabletop, you build your background there and then, and there's like charts that you can roll dice for that help you build that up. And it really helps you play that character. Here I noticed you do the same thing. You kind of give reasons as to why you're coming to Night City, you give your background, and that kind of gives you like perks and things, but that almost seems, as of right now, to be where that ends.
And they've said as well that, because I think there's 3 main classes you can be, and my understanding is you've got 3, or it might be you have more than 3 classes, but you've got 3 different prologues you play through. Maybe, like, I think from what I know, there's 3 classes and 3 backgrounds, which are different things. But the classes, at least, are definitely fluid because they have skill trees, which basically makes you, because the ones that they are included was solo, netrunner, and techie, I think, because there was like 8 or 10 in the original. But the solo one in the tabletop was basically you're a jack of all trades, I suppose. You do a bit of everything. And that's kind of what you're going to end up being if you go down these skill trees, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, the background as opposed to the class just kind of affects, a lot of it is the dialogue in the video game from what it seems, but it'll probably open up other options. So like basically like, were you born on the streets? Were you born into a corporation? And there was one other one that I can't remember, but it's very similar to the streets one, so. Yeah. Is there anything else about the game you think like people need to know before we sign off?
Just there's lots and lots of cool stuff. I mean, that you already knew that. I don't even know why I brought that point up. But like, yeah, the world seems very big, I suppose, because obviously it's split into 6 districts, which is a bit of a change from the original. I think there were more. But the districts seem so big. And I know one of the things they've said is that you shouldn't ever hit a loading screen, and fast travel is an option, but you don't ever have to use it. You can just get around with like vehicles or the metro system and things like that. So I think based on these small chunks we've seen of these bigger districts that are part of this bigger city, be really hyped about like how big this world is going to be for you to explore. But yeah, that's probably the main point.
Cool. Well, I believe that's everything we have to say so far from what we've seen of the game, but until next time, I've been Brett from GameByte.
And I've been Vicky from GameByte.
You've been wonderful. Goodbye.
Robot. It was kind of cool.